But one of the things I realize is we have been so consistent for so long that we have figured out what works and what just doesn't work, and what really doesn't work, and what really does work.
When you are consistent at something, it helps you identify what was the most important in hindsight.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1229. What do you do when you're dealing with burnout? Today, for episode number 1230, another reason consistency is so important.
Yay.
Yay. We're having a retreat when is it? In October, December, September? I don't know.
September. Yeah.
I have no idea when it is because it's so far out that we're focused on a lot of other things.
It's at least 250 days away.
So we've already put the down payment for this venue. It's awesome. It's out in the mountains. It's going to be great. And Alan and I were having this conversation, and I was like, hey, should I go out there and shoot a promo video and do like the whole thing and bring my camera and do all that? And we like laughed and we're like, nope, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. So one of the reasons we say that is because at this point we have hosted and or co-hosted 5 or 6 events. And for every single one of those, we have taken time and recorded some sort of video at the venue or whatever outside. And it didn't really ever do anything. Didn't ever really matter. Nothing ever really came of it. So we realized, hey, that's one of those things that we thought would be super powerful, that we thought would help a ton, that we thought was necessary, that doesn't really matter that much. That is the point of today's episode. One of the other reasons that consistency is so important, you figure out what works and you figure out what doesn't. It's not just you figure out what works and then you do it often. You get the opportunity to figure out, oh, you know what? I thought us going to a really nice venue, which we did for an event that we co-hosted called Confident Women Consortium. We went, I recorded this banger of a promo video, thought it was the best thing ever created. Didn't matter. Nothing really mattered. It didn't really help us that much. Not nearly as much as we expected. And that is the beautiful side of things where I used to feel very, very... There was a part of me that felt sad that I didn't have the hack to quote-unquote business success, or I didn't have the hack to quote-unquote podcast success. But one of the things I realize is we have been so consistent for so long that we have figured out what works and what just doesn't work, and what really doesn't work, and what really does work. I think that's an intangible piece of consistency that people don't really connect to. You don't really connect the fact that, well, if I do something every day, if I do something very often for a long enough period of time, there are 25 things that go into me doing that one thing. So, like, what's a good example? We've done podcasting so consistently, again, we have a lot of episodes, that sometimes Alan will come on and he'll be like, hey, Kev, your mic's not on. Or I'll be like, hey, Alan, your levels aren't right. That's just a byproduct of us doing this consistently. It's not why we were doing it. I didn't want to get better at understanding audio and video. That wasn't a goal. But that's a byproduct of us doing something so consistently. So that's another piece that I think maybe can help you be a little bit more consistent. Maybe it's a little bit more necessity of maybe you know what to say. Maybe you know exactly what not to say. Maybe you have a mistake that you made a long time ago that you never would have made if you weren't consistent enough to get there. I think it's an important facet.
Well, I think that there's a very, very wise piece of this that I want to focus in on, zoom in on. I did this on book club this past Saturday because we're reading a book called Essentialism by Gregory McKeon, and this was about routine. And I had everyone in book club raise their hand. I said, who here? And there was a good showing. It was good showing. 15 people, something like that. It was good. It was good showing on book club. So thank you for everyone who attended, by the way. But anyway, so I said, by a showing of hands, either digitally on Zoom or literally on your camera, who here has a positive relationship with the word routine? Because routine and consistency are very similar. It's like redundant, consistent, routine. And some people were like, ooh, awesome. There was a couple people in the room who really don't like routine. They like variety. They don't like consistency. They like spontaneity. And I think everyone has a certain harmony, a certain percentage of consistency versus variety, consistency versus spontaneity. Routine, same old, do it, and new. If you're overly focused on variety at the expense of consistency, you're not going to get this thing that I want to focus on here today, which is, and I did this in book club, I had everyone close their eyes. I'm doing it now. And I said, I want everyone to go into the future for a second. Okay? Go into the future and try to go into the future 5 years. And I know this is challenging, but try to imagine what your life might be like in 5 years. Okay? So what age are you going to be? Boom. For me, 39. Kev, you're going to be 39 as well, I think. I don't know your age, so.
Same.
39?
Sure.
Fair?
Yeah.
Are you 34 yet?
38. I have no idea. Honest to God, I have no idea. I'm not even kidding in this moment. I was born in 1989. My birthday's in August. So this year, no, I'm 30. Yeah, I am 30. Am I 34? I don't know. I really don't know. I'll find out while you're talking.
You're going to be, thank you. Please
I
find
think I'm
that out for
34
me.
years old.
Yeah. That's actually hilarious.
Pretty alarming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little, but that's awesome. That's awesome. I think you're 34.
I'm literally going to Google. This is just for behind the scenes. I'm gonna Google how old am I, and then it'll say what was your birthday, and it's going to tell me.
That's awesome.
So I'm not the only person who has this problem. First of all,
apparently not. Although you might be the only person on this podcast who has this problem.
I am.
Just joking.
No,
Okay,
I am.
So back to the visualization here,
Sorry.
Kev, for a minute. Okay, so everyone, if you're driving, don't do this. Okay. Anyone listening or watching this, close your eyes. And I want you to think about what your life could be like in 5 years. Think about what you think it will actually be like. Not what it could be like. Let's not do that. Let's just, what do you think it'll actually be like? So I'll be 39 years old. Okay, where are you going to live? Are you going to have a home or are you going to be renting? Are you going to have a family or are you going to be single? Are you going to have an intimate partner, I guess, or are you going to be single? Are you going to be a business owner or are you going to work for a company? Are you, what industry are you going to be in? Are you going to have more education? Are you going to have a master's or a doctorate? Or are you going to, not be as educated? Maybe you're going to be self-educated. Maybe you're going to focus on personal development. What are you going to look like? Right? What are you going to look like? What are you going to feel about yourself? What are you going to call yourself? Are you going to call yourself a podcaster, a speaker, a writer, what? Okay? So go into the future with me. Okay, and there's one thing I want to focus on in this episode, and Kev, I promise this will connect to consistency.
I feel like I'm doing a guided meditation.
I know. Okay, now think back, and this is what I did on book club. Think back, and I have one simple question for you. What is the routine that made the biggest difference? That is going into the future, and this is the point that Kevin's really trying to make on this episode that hopefully I can drive home even more, which is when you are consistent at something, it helps you identify what was the most important in hindsight. 5 years from now, when I'm 39 and Kevin's 39 or 38 or whatever.
38.
38.
I'm 33. I'm 33.
Okay,
years
you
old.
are 33. Okay,
Thought
no
so.
wonder why you didn't know, because I keep calling you 34, confusing him. So in 5 years from right now, when Kevin is 38 and I'm 39, we're going to know what made the biggest difference. We're going to look back and go, oh, wow. Okay, so luckily we podcasted consistently. What if you could go into the future and decide in advance what you think is going to make the biggest difference and then be consistent at that? And then you're right. You're going to be wrong sometimes. There are so many things that we thought were going to matter so much that we realize now after we did them for weeks, months, even years that didn't make that big of a difference. And then there's other things that made a way bigger difference than we originally thought. And I think that that's why younger people struggle so much with success, because you just don't know. You're brand new to the industry. You're a beginner. You don't know what's going to make the difference, right? I think consistent, deliberate practice at your craft is going to make the biggest difference. But I'm 34 and I just realized the number one most important thing, not what I thought. If you had asked me in my early 20s, what's going to make the biggest difference in your career, I never would have said effective communication. Podcasting, speaking, writing, coaching, consulting, training, all have one thing in common: effective communication. If I had known that in my early 20s, Kev, I would have taken every communication course there was. I would have been listening to orators and studying speaking and studying effective communication every single day. I would have been watching TED Talks. I didn't know that until my 30s. right? I wish I had known. So hopefully everyone on this episode can go into the future and figure out what's the routine or what's the thing, what's the thing that you think is going to make the biggest difference in your own future, not Kevin and I's. And that's what I wanted to bring to this episode. That's the power of consistency, is you really do figure out what works and what doesn't work. And some people want to say that they can figure that out in advance. And I'm telling you, I mean, you can definitely learn from books. You can, study someone else's career and figure out what made the biggest difference for them. But the economy changes, technology changes, industries change and evolve. If you invested in retail stores in the 90s, you'd have crushed it. You'd have done so well. If you invest in retail stores now, you're in a lot of trouble because online e-commerce is growing exponentially. So the fundamentals shift sometimes, and sometimes the only way to learn is this thing, the consistency.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tarryn McCarthy, and I'm host of the Business of Happiness podcast. When I met Kevin and Alan 2 years ago, I had no idea of how much impact they would have not only on the success for my business, but also on my life. They've given me enormous perspective and true strategies, true tactics to take in my everyday business plan and in my life plan to make an even greater success. Kevin and Alan, thank you so much. I couldn't even begin to express my gratitude for all you've done for me. And if you're looking for similar mentorship, I highly recommend these incredible experts at the Next Level University.
You and I were literally, we redid. So again, I say this sometimes. We're doing Marathon Monday. I think we're recording 8 episodes. So we're recording a bunch of episodes. So if I say we were doing something today, it means on Monday we were doing it, not necessarily the day that you hear this. So we were doing our yearly wrap up. And we literally went through it. It was like, oh, wow, those are the 3 most important things we need to be doing every day. And there was a couple times where you said, what's the most important thing for the podcast? And I was like, it's these 3 things. And you're like, what else? And I was like, honestly, just kind of those 3 things. There's a lot of things I could say, but it's really those 3 things. Yeah. To the point, and this is how much I believe in this. I have an email from a potential client right now. Did a free call with this person. They said, hey, I'm interested in working together. Can you send me over some stuff? I said, sure, here you go. They reached out to me a couple months later and said, okay, cool, I think I'm ready to get going. And I said, what are you looking for? Because you just said, I'm ready to get started. Like, do you want this? Do you want this? What do you want? And this person said, honestly, I think I just want to do consulting because I have a virtual assistant and they're doing all the editing. The first thing I'm going to tell them is, are you on video or not? Is this person doing social media content for you or not? I understand what you think. You think what you're doing is the right thing, and you just need me to break some things free, when in reality, you're not doing the right things. That's why you're not winning at the level you want. And that's the interesting thing of understanding what actually works and what doesn't. Yeah, there's a lot of things that work, but everything works at a different level depending on what you're doing. And it's just, you can never really know that unless you do something for long enough. And then it's almost like, you don't necessarily have to stop it, but it's almost like in order to know how good something is, you have to see the bad sides too. In a way. I think you need the contrast of, well, I don't know, I don't necessarily have a good example of that. Just knowing yourself. For me, you and I have talked about this in the past where like I respond really well when I lift heavy weights. That's just the way I am. Right? I respond really well. My body responds really well in terms of physical change and strength. You're not necessarily the same way. But it's taken me 16 years of working out to figure that out. If I just started initially, I would never know. Again, it's not a law, but to me, it kind of is. Like if I want to get in better shape, I go do hard cardio, boxing, kickboxing, martial arts style, hard cardio, and I lift heavy weight. I'm going to be just fine. For me, that's what works, but that's only based on the fact that I've seen other things that just don't work as well. And that really, a lot of us are trying to figure out what works, but a lot of us have to drop what doesn't first. That's the interesting thing, because you think you're making progress, but sometimes you're making progress at the own detriment of you figuring out what would actually make actual progress. It's an interesting thing. This is a very deep episode. I think I'm struggling to get to that next layer below it. But that's what I'm trying to do in this episode is you can only understand how important something is to do consistently when you do it consistently enough for long enough, which is kind of a whole paradox in a way.
Yeah, because in a way, you won't do it consistent long
Right,
enough until
right.
you know that's why
Yeah.
failing forward is everything.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to do the wrong thing for too long. Because if you do the wrong thing for too long, you'll know not to do that.
Well, I'll be the first to say this. There's some things that I'm really, really, really bad at, and genuinely, it's been alarming. I think effective communication is more challenging for me than I originally thought, but I only know that because I've done it long enough.
At least you know how old you are.
Yeah, it's true.
That's cool.
A fact.
That's
a
good.
fact. Yeah, that's a start. That's a start.
Yeah.
So far in this room, that means I'm ahead of the game. I'm kidding. I didn't know how old you were. I should. You're my business partner.
I don't know how old you are, and I don't care. Whatever, man. You know, you're you.
If you're going off looks, I'm 17 and a half. Okay, the thing that I will say that I do well is fail longer than everyone else.
Definitely. Unfortunately, I've been part of that.
Okay. The reason why is this. One of the reasons why is this. And you don't really know. I think that it's this weird duality, and then we'll go. Okay, we just stopped doing something today that we did for, I did this. I want to share this with the listeners. This is important. Okay, this is important. So Kevin and I created something. If you're a long-term listener, you'll remember this. For episode 999, for the new listeners, we'll share a brief story about it. For episode 999, we did something that we thought was special. We created something called the Next Level 9. And it was an initiative to try to help people track habits. And so we picked 9 habits, 3 under health, 3 under wealth, and 3 under love. That was going to be our own unique flavor of 75 Hard, but it was going to be what we thought was a more customized version of that. It didn't catch on. Okay, it didn't work well. And there's a lot of reasons why that is, right? We didn't promote it enough. We had too many other things to promote. The app wasn't as far along as we needed it to be. There's a couple things that didn't sync up properly. But I don't want to make that as an excuse. What I do know is that as of yesterday, I'm going to look this up right now. As of yesterday, I did Next Level 9. Ready? I tracked Next Level 9, hashtag Next Level 9, 218 days in a row. So I did Next Level 9, 218 days in a row, where I went into the app that we created called Optimal, and I put a red light, green light, or yellow light on each of those 9 habits every day, and screenshotted it, and did a hashtag and tagged Kevin in it every day for 218 days. As of today, Kevin and I decided that isn't working.
All for nothing.
And we're and we're not gonna do that anymore. And what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna actually make the app good enough to where we can take our actual peak performance tracking system, the habits we really do track, and put it on the app so that we use it that way. And Kevin and I decided today, honestly, you know what's really powerful in our community? It's not necessarily Next Level 9. That's not catching on right now. What is catching on is tracking. I have so many people reaching out to track their finances, and I have so many people reaching out to track their habits. So tracking is landing. What's not landing is Next Level 9. So let's get rid of it. So 218 days in a row, Kevin and I finally decided, okay, this isn't working. Let's get rid of it. That is, I think, a really powerful example of how this can work. And in the future, when we have more people tracking habits and achieving their goals and dreams, what if part of that is us realizing that we tried this thing all those years ago and it didn't work, but at least we did it long enough to know it didn't work. A lot of people don't know the things that don't work because they didn't do them long enough to figure out that they don't actually work. And I think you and I are probably on the other end of that. We probably do it a little longer than we should, but at least it's better than not trying at all.
Well, the other interesting part of that is if that was what we built our business on, we would do it for a lot longer and we'd figure it out. That's the other interesting thing too, is like we realized,
but it was taking away from other fundamentals that we know matter.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not a pillar of what we do. That's the interesting. That's just a very, very.
But habit
interesting
tracking
thing.
is
right.
Next Level 9 isn't,
right.
But habit tracking is. So see how we kept the important part, which is habit tracking, and we got rid of the thing that wasn't working. So we kind of repackaged it in a way. That's a great point.
There's just, I think a lot of people assume something is final. It's like, it didn't work. It's final. But it's almost like I used to watch Fear Factor a lot. Huge fan of Fear Factor. I love Fear Factor. And probably because I love Joe Rogan. But I used to think to myself, they would have these underwater challenges where you'd have to go underwater and you have to find the key and you have to put the key in the lock and you'd have to, whatever, you'd be locked in a box and that's the most anxiety-provoking thing in the world. I think a lot of us think that's how life is, where if you go down and you don't figure out how to get the key in, you're going to drown. When in reality, you can go back down and say, oh, that key didn't work, let me get rid of that. Or maybe I had the key upside down, let me try again. I think that's the beautiful thing. I had somebody ask me, and we'll go after this. I had somebody ask me, what advice would you give to an early entrepreneur, aka an early dream chaser? And I said, nothing is going to pop off overnight, aka nothing is going to make you super successful overnight, most likely, and nothing is going to break you completely down overnight, most likely. Does it happen? Of course it does. Does it happen often? Not to most people.
And when it does, you hear those stories. So it makes it seem like that's the norm.
Yeah. But that's what I said. I said, look, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be the most successful. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and be completely broke. There's a lot of time in between, and there's a lot of time for you to adjust. Even the Titanic, if they saw we referenced the Titanic in a previous episode. If they saw the iceberg sooner, they could have pivoted. You just didn't see it fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't see it fast
Smell
enough.
ice, can you?
You can smell ice, can you? So anytime we can throw a Titanic reference in there. Anything you want to say quickly before we go?
Remember that joke when you said, imagine if they were up there playing Game Boy?
I do not remember that, no.
You're funny, man.
I appreciate that.
No, I don't have anything else to say other than there's no more important success principle. And I don't mean success just in wealth. I mean in your relationship, being grateful, being kind, effectively communicating. In your health, exercising consistently, tracking whatever, macros, nutrition, whatever your nutrition plan is. And then wealth, financial fundamentals. If you can do them consistently, you're going to be so much better off. There's no version of you not like succeeding at a higher level when you can actually do consistency. I think, and this is the last thing I'll say, promise, I think the most underrated principle in terms of effectiveness and success is consistency. I think there's nothing more important. Until you can be consistent at something, you're never really going to master it. And if you don't master it, you're never really going to have the life you're truly capable of.
Strong work. Next level nation. I will not say that we have mastered live events, but I will say that we have improved them exponentially because we have been doing them consistently since, 2017, 2018. Please join us for our first live event of 2023, something we're going to be doing every year, eventually twice a year, maybe every quarter in the future. I don't know. That's a lot, but we might get there. Next Level Live 2023. It's not a speech. It's not a presentation. It is an experience. And we want you to walk away feeling like a different human. Yes, you're going to learn stuff. Yes, you're going to meet people. But I think the ultimate goal is for you to shift something in your identity. And all the live events we have attended have done that in some way, shape, or form. So that's really what we're focused on. Everything you need to know is on the website, as well as if you click the link in the show notes, it'll take you there. Please join us.
I've been asking a lot of people lately, like, why is book club so valuable? Why do you come every single week? We have one person who literally wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be there because she's from Australia and she doesn't miss every single time. And so I've been asking people, like, why? Why do you keep coming? I appreciate it, but like, why? I want to understand so that we can encourage more people. And one of the answers I got was it's basically free coaching. The other answer I got was it keeps me reading. It keeps me reading consistently. Everyone says they want to read more, but who has a community of people that are keeping them accountable to that? You know, we do 1 chapter, maybe 2 chapters at most per week. You know, it keeps you reading consistently, but not necessarily in an overwhelming way. So we're reading Essentialism right now. I think this is our 8th or 9th book. We just surpassed our 96th week in a row. Book club will be around forever. And I'm not saying that for any other reason than we've improved a lot. We're going to continue improving a lot. This is a community you can believe in and that you can trust will be there for you long term. It's not going to be something that fizzles out. Book club will be there forever. I plan on doing it forever. It's also a place where I learn a lot too. Not only my own perspective of the books that we're reading, but I get to hear everyone else's perspectives too. So you don't have to participate. You can just listen in if you want. You don't have to read the book. You can do it if you want. But we hope you join us. The link will be in the show notes to register. And it's every single Saturday. You can come 1 week per month. You can come, 2 weeks per month. You can come every single week. It's entirely up to you. We hope to see you there.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1231. What is mindfulness to you? I went on a pretty big podcast the other day that was all about mindfulness, and I realized, you know what? I don't know if we've talked about that in a long time. So we are going to talk about that. As always, we love you, appreciate you, grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.